Okay, so in the next video we're going to be talking about minority groups that are affected in their performance in sport. And for this I've used the acronym WEDI, because WEDI essentially identifies all of the target groups. W for women, E for ethnic groups, E for elderly, D for disabled, and Y for young people. In all of these instances, within the current climate within the UK, these are known as disadvantaged groups, because for whatever reason there are different factors which are affecting their levels of participation in sport and physical activity. We're able to draw upon these by identifying the 3 different areas, so the 5 different groups and 3 different areas which are identified in the middle. So mental factors, social factors and physical factors. So if we're talking about the advantages and disadvantages of women's participation in physical activity, and we're talking about the mental factors, it might be to do with levels of confidence in participating in physical activities that they've not necessarily done for some years, because a large period of their recent years has been spent looking after and raising children. So having the confidence then to go and join a team or a club may be a disadvantage as far as they're concerned. And then the social disadvantages may well be the levels or the amounts of activity which women can get access to, which will enable them to participate on a regular basis. Because as we speak at the moment, there are far more of these sports or activities available to men of a similar age. And then the physical factors, which don't necessarily impact upon women too much, and as a result of recent trends, we've started to see an increase, so there are advantages, an increase in female-only activities such as Pilates, yoga, aerobic-like activities, Zumba, we often hear about, another different type of training. So there are advantages, there are things that are developing. When we talk about the elderly, we talk about the mental factors, again, having the confidence to be part of a club. There are specific clubs that we associate with elderly people, such as golf clubs, bowling clubs, but in terms of other activities, they are few and far between. And similarly, having those social contacts, making sure that there is provision for elderly people is an important part of essentially what our governments are trying to achieve. And then there are obviously physical constraints. The older we get, the less energy we have, the less capacity we have in taking part in the more physical activities. So you don't see too many elderly people continuing to play football or rugby, for example, because there are restrictions in terms of what they are capable of doing. Then with the next one, the E on the WEDI, relates to different ethnic groups. And our ideal groups to talk about here are Muslim women. We talk about different constraints in terms of things that affect them from participation, so certainly showing of skin, wearing headdress and religious clothing, which might have a significant impact on their confidence levels in joining the gym or taking part within club activities. And we've started to see some recent trends, some recent initiatives by certain local governments which aim to increase levels of participation, women-only activities that they can get access to. So as much as we talk about the disadvantages, we also talk about the advantages for each of these different groups. We then talk about disabled. So obviously there are restrictions in terms of their physical capacity, and there is lots being done in recent years to increase accessibility. A greater range of adaptability in terms of the activities, so we've seen a lot of new innovative games to accommodate people with disabilities, certainly wheelchair events like football, basketball and rugby at the Olympic Games, making sure that there are ramps into and from different sporting venues. And also we've seen a recent surge, a recent trend, raising the profile of people with disabilities on the TV through the Paralympic Games. And this is obviously engendered a culture of levels of confidence, so people's mental state has significantly improved as a result of this, and people are starting to want to leave the house to take up different activities. And again, that's a real advantage. Our final group that we talk about relate to young people. And although you often associate physical activity with young people, it's about provision. It's about young girls and young boys at the age of 15 maintaining the levels of physical activity that are being encouraged at school. So they have the social peer groups that encourage them to be involved in physical activity, and they also have the capacity to attend these different activities. We've seen a recent trend in terms of free swimming for teenagers. That has obviously increased people's ability to swim effectively. It's the mental impact as well, so like young people having the confidence, levels of confidence to go and join clubs and participate at a regular level. And then in terms of the physical element, it doesn't impact too much because teenagers, they're at the highest peak of physicality around about this age. But there is lots of initiatives that have been incorporated to increase levels of participation amongst young people. So disadvantaged groups, remember, weedy is a way that you can call upon it. And whenever you answer a question in relation to any of these groups, always refer to social, mental and physical disadvantages and advantages to each of these groups. Thank you.